Places in America where the road goes quiet, where legends still breathe, and where the line between truth and folklore blurs. From haunted highways and cryptid sightings to stories that have echoed through generations, State of the Unknown takes you deep into the shadows of America's strangest corners. Hosted by Rob, this documentary-style podcast blends immersive storytelling with real research to uncover the tales that refuse to fade. If you like your mysteries murky and your folklore just a little too real, you might already be living in the state of the unknown. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that Down the Crooked Path is researched and recorded in Niagara Falls, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Attawandaron, and the Mississauga of Credit First. This land has been home to Indigenous peoples for thousands of years, and we recognize their enduring connection. We are grateful to share these stories on their lands that carry their histories, and we encourage our listeners to reflect on the past, present, and future of the land they call home.
Hey, Kyle here. While Amanda takes a well-earned break for the holidays, we're bringing you something a little different. These stories come from beyond Canada's borders, eerie tales and mysteries that stretch far and wide. So settle in and enjoy this special off-the-map edition of Down the Crooked Path.
Welcome, wanderers, to Journey Down the Crooked Path, a place where the stories are stranger, the shadows stretch longer, and the things that go bump in the night might just be listening. I'm Amanda Joy, your guide into the eerie, the forgotten, and the downright bizarre. Here, we step off the well-lit roads of Canadian creepies and venture into the murky corners of history, folklore, and the unexplained, where the whispers grow louder and the truth is never quite what it seems. So let's take a deep breath, watch your step, and whatever you do, don't look back. Once you start down the crooked path, you never know what might follow.
Can a person die from sheer terror? Can a curse be so powerful that it can end someone's life? Is it possible that the very idea of a curse is terrifying enough to stop someone's heart in fear? Often when a person passes in a way that defies all logic and explanation, we will refer to it as a freak accident or natural causes. But it still leaves loved ones with questions. Often, and without confirmation, these deaths are passed off as rare medical events. But as we have seen throughout history, with a lack of science, people often resort to the supernatural for answers. When it comes to fear and death, historically, there are cultural beliefs and references, as well as medical and scientific explanations that support this to be true in some extraordinary cases. There are also many cultures that have deep-rooted folklore and superstitions that curses, hexes, voodoo, and witches are responsible for some unexplained deaths. Is it even possible to discern if someone is a victim of a supernatural murder, paranoid delusion, or just an atypical natural experience? Welcome to Down the Crooked Path. I'm your host, Amanda Joy. Join me as we dive into eerie and spine-chilling stories that blur the lines between reality and the unknown, from cryptids and mysterious disappearances to true crime, UFO sightings, and paranormal activity. Venture into the unknown and uncover the secrets that lie down the crooked path. Today we explore the mysterious death of Christopher Case, a radio producer who was found deceased in his apartment in 1991. He had no obvious signs of death, such as sickness or injury. He had one thing: fear, that a witch had hexed him and that he was running out of time. This is a case that challenges our understanding of reality and the power of mind. Was he a victim of his own imagination, or of a sinister power beyond his control? In early 1991, Christopher Case was your average 35-year-old working man. After quitting his job as a radio DJ, he moved to Seattle to start a new job for a company called Muzak, where soft elevator music was created. Christopher was a physically fit man who maintained a tight exercise regime and was well-liked enough by his peers. He had easy time making friends in his new town and was able to sustain his friendships back home. Despite his friendly demeanor, Christopher had stayed single for many years by choice and preferred to spend evenings at home listening to music. In particular, he enjoyed ancient music. Those who knew him would tell you ancient Egyptian music was his favorite. Part of his job entailed that Christopher traveled for work, and on April 11th of that year, Christopher was attending a work conference. Later that evening, he went for dinner with his co-workers, also attending the conference. One of them brought along a friend, a woman who was about 20 years Christopher's elder. During the conversation, it came up that she, too, was interested in ancient music, and the pair talked well into the evening. As the dinner concluded, the woman made advances towards Christopher, who was not interested in anything beyond the platonic conversation, and politely declined. The woman, whose name is unknown, again asked Christopher to go home with her, and again, Christopher respectfully turned down the offer. The woman became enraged by this. She stood up and declared she was a witch, and Christopher would regret his rejection. She was placing a curse on him, and he would be dead by the end of the week. The following day, Christopher headed home, unfazed by the evening's events. Once home, he called his good friend Sandy Solder and told her about the events of the trip, including the bizarre dinner. Together, they laughed that he had dodged a bullet. After the phone call, the two carried on about their days as normal. However, it was the next day that Christopher started to experience some unusual happenings. He had nightmares and was seeing shadows move across the room. He heard voices whispering incomprehensibly to him. Christopher lived alone, and after having done several searches of the apartment, found no one else there. However, the moving shadows and whisperings never stopped. On April 14th, Christopher calls Sammy and tells her that he is scared. This would be the first of 3 phone calls Sammy receives over the next few days from Christopher. He hasn't slept, and every time he starts to nod off, he is awoken by someone or something pinning him to the bed. He claims that whatever this thing is, it yanked him out of the bed at one point. After he is finally able to sleep, he awakes to find splotches of blood in his sheets. To his horror, he discovers what looks like tiny intentional cuts on the top of each of his fingers. He is covered in scratches, and he has bruise marks along his neck as if he was strangled. During this conversation, he confides to her that he believes whatever this is, it means to kill him. It is now the 16th of April, and after having not heard from Christopher, Sammy calls the police and requests a welfare check for him. As it turns out, Christopher was so terrified, he got up and left his apartment in the middle of the night and spent the remaining hours in a hotel room. On the 17th, Sammy receives an alarming voice message from Christopher. He was frantic and convinced that he wouldn't survive the night. She tried to call him back but couldn't reach him, and so on the 18th, she once again called in a welfare check. With no answer at his door, the police allowed themselves into the apartment, and what they found was a very peculiar scene. Each wall had a line of salt at the base and piles of salt in the corner. All of the rooms were adorned with crucifixes, and dozens of candles all over had been allowed to burn down to their wicks. Finally, the police discovered Christopher. He was dead, clothed and kneeling in an empty bathtub, head tilted back and slumped against the wall behind him. There were no signs of struggle, forced entry, self-harm, or anything that would have suggested foul play. Sammy, who happened to be psychic, had advised Christopher to protect himself. Prior to his work trip, he had been a skeptic of the supernatural. After, he was visiting many religious and occult bookstores as he possibly could, purchasing a variety of religious items and Bibles. One occult store manager, Rodney Higuchi, recalls his interactions with Christopher on 2 accounts before his death. He said that Christopher was paranoid and clearly scared of something. He had asked Rodney if he could protect himself against witchcraft. Many traditions and cultures, salt is used to ward off negative entities. It is commonly used to cleanse and protect a space, and it is believed that Christopher was perhaps using the salt as some sort of barrier to protect him from whatever it was he thought was trying to harm him. On May 4th, 1991, King County Medical Examiner declared Christopher's cause of death as acute myocarditis. With no reason to investigate further, the police were satisfied with the natural cause and closed the case. Christopher's friends, though, were not as convinced. They couldn't understand how a young man who never drank or smoked and was both physically and mentally well before these events could just drop dead from heart failure. Nor could they explain how someone who has always been a very logically minded person could develop such a nerve-rattling fear of witches and curses. They questioned what really happened to Christopher Case. When it comes to how a coroner determines a cause of death, they do consider psychological factors. This is referred to as a psychological autopsy. Understanding someone's history and behaviors can be indicators and predictors of a person's actions. A collaboration between healthcare professionals, police, and medical examiners are all involved in defining someone's state of mind at the time of their death, which can aid in determining its cause. So, when King County medical examiners performed Christopher's autopsy, he would have taken into consideration the events and state of mind that his friends reported. The medical investigator Richard Gardner reported no signs of violence, no signs of self-harm, combined with the physical condition of the body. Heart failure, because of acute myocarditis, was determined to be the cause of death, despite the extreme fear that Christopher was experiencing. Acute myocarditis is an inflammation around the heart muscles and is typically caused from an infection, usually viral or bacterial, but in some cases, fungal. For example, upper respiratory infections. This condition interferes with the heart's electric system, disrupting the heart's ability to beat regularly. When left untreated, it causes a heart attack. Symptoms can include fever, heart palpitation, headaches, fatigue, and shortness of breath. By all accounts, Christopher was healthy. He didn't have any of the symptoms, and if he did, they weren't documented. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't small warning signs. This condition can have subtle symptoms that are not easy to recognize and can easily be discarded. According to Sammy, he claimed that he was being held down at night and awoken in his bed, unable to move, attacked. What he's describing to her could sound like a panic attack, which could be related to the symptoms of myocarditis. as a panic attack often includes shortness of breath and heart palpitations. This, however, doesn't explain the bruising around Christopher's neck, nor does it explain the tiny pinpricks and incisions on each individual fingertip. There are those who suggest that Christopher scared himself to death. But is this even possible? While psychological stress can impact physical health issues, it cannot cause myocarditis, but in some cases it can make the condition worse. What fear can cause is a condition called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome. It is an extremely rare condition that is often confused for acute myocarditis. Yet again, though, Christopher doesn't fit the mold for this either. Typically, those who are at risk at Takotsubo cardiomyopathy may also suffer from neurological conditions, asthma, and conditions such as depression, panic disorder, schizophrenia, and substance abuse, which, until the week before his death, Christopher did not have any history of any sort of psychotic episodes. This condition also more commonly affects women over the age of 50. Fear is a very powerful emotion, and although rare, people have been known to die from it. As a natural emotional response, our bodies produce certain chemicals, such as adrenaline, and in small doses, that's fine. In large amounts, it's fatal. When the body encounters a strong emotion, it has an automatic response to it. A person's heart rate may rise, they may start to sweat, blood sugars can elevate. All these things can trick the body into perceiving a physical threat, and as a result, the body goes into flight or fight mode. In extreme emotional situations, the body may start to overproduce chemicals like adrenaline.
You. Still haunting the same old fast fashion? Time to dig up something better with Back from the Dead Goods, a Canadian small business where forgotten threads get a second life and sustainability meets spooky. This isn't just upcycled clothing, it's resurrected fashion with an eerie edge. Handpicked, reworked, and revived, every piece is as unique as a ghost story whispered at midnight. And because you're a part of the Canadian Creepies family, you get an exclusive deal. Use code Canadian Creepies at checkout for 10% off. Find them lurking on Instagram, Etsy, and Poshmark. Links are in the episode description. Give your wardrobe a second chance at life, if you dare. Once upon a time, in the land of everyday moments, there lived a sprinkle of magic called icing sugar photography. From sticky cake smash smiles to wind-swept yes moments, they capture the sugar sweet, the beautifully messy, and everything in between. Whether you're a blushing bride or a blooming family, or just want to freeze time for a second, Icing Sugar Photography is your fairy god lens. Visit icingsugarphotography.com and follow along on Instagram at icingsugarphoto. Let your story sparkle, because life is sweet and memories should be too. Looking for your next obsession? The Creators Collective Podcasts is your gateway to the dark, the chilling, and the downright fascinating. We're a community of independent podcasts with one goal: to share the best in true crime, paranormal tales, folklore, and unexplained mysteries. Whether you crave cold cases that won't stay closed, haunted histories that refuse to be forgotten, or stories that make you sleep with the lights on, there's a show waiting for you in the collective. And when you join us, you're not just listening to one podcast. You're stepping into a world of creators who love this stuff as much as you do. Check out the Creators Collective today. Follow the link in our show notes to discover your next favorite podcast. We'll be waiting for you. Let's take a moment during this break to talk about something that matters. Something that doesn't get to be background noise. The Anishinaabe-Moan word, Niki Nagana, means we are all related, and we are. But relationship isn't just about words, it's about responsibility. Canadian author Naomi Klein once said, "It is not enough to say that we live on Indigenous land. We have to act as if we do." And one way to do that is by supporting Pay Your Rent, a grassroots mutual aid initiative that offers direct material support to Indigenous organizers across this land. It's not charity, it's rent. For those of us who aren't Indigenous to this place, it's a way to show up differently, to redistribute some of what's been taken. The Pay Your Rent Fund started as a one-time request for help in 2018 and grew into a nonprofit called Niki Nagana. Your monthly or one-time donation can help provide food, hygiene supplies, housing support, and resources for Indigenous-led resistance and community care. So if you've ever said, we're all related, ask yourself, are you being a good relative? Visit payyourrent.ca and find out more about how you can be part of something better. Now, back to this case.
Adrenaline allows calcium to the heart. And with this flood of calcium, the heart can have a hard time slowing itself down. This leads to irregular heartbeats and a lack of blood flow to the body, resulting in death. Fear isn't the only emotion that can trigger this type of bodily response. Strong emotions like those experienced during sex can also cause this. So yes, it is possible that Christopher scared himself to death. An emotion as ancient as life itself, fear holds power over us that is both profound and at times unfathomable. It can surge through our bodies, command our actions, and in rare instances, its intensity can be so overwhelming that it leads to the ultimate surrender of life. In 1984, director Wes Craven released a horror movie surrounding fear, more precisely, nightmares. A Nightmare on Elm Street featured dream demon Freddy Krueger, who kills teenagers while they sleep. What most people don't know is the genesis of this film. Craven's muse was as real as it was chilling. A series of newspaper articles about Cambodian refugees who, after escaping the killing fields, were plagued by such horrific nightmares that they refused to sleep due to PTSD. One boy's story was particularly harrowing. His nightmares were so intense that he would often stay up for days on end. When he finally succumbed to sleep, his parents heard him screaming in terror from the other room. When they rushed in, they found him dead. He had died mid-nightmare. This is just one of several similar stories. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, a series of tragic and unexplained deaths occurred within the Laotian refugee community in the United States. 81 deaths alone occurring in Auaha County, Hawaii. Healthy Hmong men, a part of a wave of refugees fleeing the aftermath of the Vietnam War and the Secret War in Laos, began dying in their sleep, leading to speculations that they were literally scared to death. These men averaged 33 years of age and were all seemingly healthy, much like Christopher Case. The phenomenon eventually was termed Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, SUNS. This mysterious condition seemed to strike without warning, with victims often reporting to have experienced distressing nightmares prior to their death. From early hunter-gatherer societies to the establishment of the Lansing Kingdom in the 14th century, Laos has been at a crossroads of cultures and influences. The Hmong people have a rich culture that traces back to the mountainous regions of China, and they have a strong spiritual belief system. They hold a profound respect for the supernatural, and many believe that these deaths were caused by a malevolent spirit known as a dub sam, which is said to have visited these men in the sleep, resulting in their untimely demise. This malevolent entity, appearing in the guise of a jealous woman, was said to prey on those who neglected their ancestral traditions, ensnaring them in a fatal grip as they slept. The SUNS cases brought to light the struggles of the Laotian community, highlighting the difficulties they faced in adapting to a new country while trying to preserve their cultural identity. The medical community was perplexed by these deaths, and intense research was conducted to understand the cause. While some attributed the cause of death to cardiac arrhythmia, others considered psychological factors, such as the stress of assimilation or the trauma of war, as possible explanations. In medieval Europe, the term nightmare was used to describe a demonic creature or witch that would sit on a person's chest while they slept, causing paralysis and terrifying visions. This phenomenon was often referred to as being hag-ridden, and it was believed that malevolent entities would torment their victims by suffocating them and inducing horrifying nightmares. When we consider Christopher's experiences, we see parallels with this medieval concept. Christopher reported intense fear, hallucinations, and was afraid to sleep. What might have been at play here is a phenomenon known as sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis occurs when a person transitions between wakefulness and REM sleep, resulting in a temporary inability to move or speak. During this state, vivid and often terrifying hallucinations can occur, which may explain Christopher's experiences of feeling a malevolent presence pinning him to his bed. The tale of Christopher Case perishing from heart failure amidst the fear of a witch's curse echoes the chilling experiences of the Laotian community. At first glance, Christopher's fear of a witch's curse seems somewhat normal. After all, throughout history, witches have been portrayed as these malevolent creatures, depicted as bringers of death, misfortune, casting spells that have doomed entire communities. The narratives of both Christopher and the Laotians are steeped in the supernatural. They serve as a prelude to the dark history of witchcraft, where fear and misunderstanding turned healers and wise women into targets of persecution. But it was not the witches who were the killers. Rather, they were the ones who faced persecution and death. The witch trials across various cultures are a testament to the fear and misunderstanding that led to the tragic death of many innocent lives. In medieval Europe, the witch hunts are a grim chapter marked by panic and hysteria that led to the execution of thousands, primarily women, under the belief that they were eradicating an evil. Malleus Maleficarum is an infamous book that fueled the fires of these witch hunts, branding witchcraft as heresy and setting the stage for centuries of fear-driven violence. The Salem witch trials are one of the most famous examples of the persecution and death of these innocents. The series of hearings and persecutions in colonial Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693. During this period, over 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft. 19 were hung on Gallows Hill, and one man was pressed to death for refusing to plead. Witch hunts are still a global occurrence today. There are thousands of people who are accused of practicing witchcraft each year, and many face persecution in organized witch hunts. Many of them are even killed for their supposed offenses. These witch hunts are very brutal, and some suspected witches have even been burned alive. Between March of 2017 and March of 2018, there were an estimated 1,630 cases of child abuse related to witchcraft and demonic exorcism. In the year 2000, a young 11-year-old girl named Victoria Quimby was murdered by her aunt and her aunt's boyfriend, believing the child to have been possessed by a demon. Dr. Charlotte Baker of Lancaster University has stated that these cases typically happen when some sort of misfortune or tragedy happens to a family or community that is steeped in strong religious or cultural upbringings. In their despair, these people create a scapegoat, convincing themselves that someone close to them is manipulating the events and the world around them to cause said misfortune. Gary Foxcroft, an advocate for human rights and the executive director of the Witchcraft and Human Rights Information Network, has been a vocal opponent on the abuse suffered by children accused of witchcraft. His work sheds light on the harrowing experiences of these young individuals, like the case of a 16-year-old girl who was rescued after she was subject to abuse after wrongfully being accused of witchcraft by a pastor relative. As a result, she had been beaten and burned. She was rescued by a neighbor woman and sent from Nigeria to the Lancashire area. The image of the witch as a harbinger of death is a powerful one, but it is crucial to remember that those accused of witchcraft are far more likely to be victims than villains. It is easy to find a never-ending rabbit hole of deaths and abuse of people who have been believed to be witches, but near impossible to find cases where an accused witch has caused the death of another. Many misconceptions about witches have evolved over the centuries, and are often always rooted in fear rather than fact. Is this what led Christopher, a man of logic, to become engulfed in this overwhelming dread when he believed he was cursed by a witch? His sudden descent into a realm of fear, despite his logical nature, suggests a psychological phenomenon where even the most rational minds can be overwhelmed by the power of suggestion and the fear of the unknown. It's a stark reminder of what the human psyche's vulnerability is to the mysteries that lurk in the corners of our understanding. Associated with witches are curses. Curses have long captivated the human imagination, creating an entanglement of fear and respect throughout countless cultures. Historically, curses have been a method of social control, a way to instill fear and ensure conformity in communities. In modern times, the idea of a curse continues to influence us, often seen in literature and films that echo our ancestors' apprehensions. They serve as a fascinating reflection of societal values and fears, evolving with time but always reminding us the power of words and belief. Whether regarded as superstition or psychological warfare, curses are a reminder that humans believe that we can control and alter destiny. Their impact on today's life is subtle yet significant, as they continue to be a part of the collective consciousness. Perhaps one of the most famous curses in history is the alleged curse of King Tut's tomb. Discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, the tomb was rumored to be protected by a dire warning: "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." The subsequent deaths of some of the members of the excavation team and related individuals fueled the legend of this curse. Lord Carnarvon died from an infected mosquito bite, and his dog died back in England reportedly at the same time. Others, like franchiser George J. Gould I, died shortly after visiting the tomb. Many attribute these events to coincidence or the presence of toxic mold in the tomb. Beyond the pharaoh's tomb, history is rife with tales of curses that have left their mark on the collective psyche. The Hope Diamond, for instance, carries a legacy of misfortune that has befallen its owners, from Marie Antoinette to Evelyn Walsh McLean. Then there is the curse of the Polish king's tomb, similar to King Tut's, where archaeologists, based on timely deaths, these were later attributed to toxic fungi within the tomb rather than supernatural forces. Sports fans may recount the curse of the billy goat that plagued the Chicago Cubs for decades until their 2016 World Series win, breaking the supposed curse's hold. These stories, whether rooted in fact or fiction, continue to fascinate. Environmental factors like mold have been suggested as a rational explanation for these symptoms that have been attributed to curses. The idea is supported by scientific studies that have identified the presence of harmful molds in sealed environments, which could lead to health issues resembling those ascribed to curses. In the situation of Christopher's mysterious death, while the presence of environmental factors such as mold were not reported, An argument could still be made that such influences could cause psychological stressors. It could explain why Christopher would develop these anxieties out of nowhere. There have been some who have suggested that the trigger for this was carbon monoxide poisoning, but the burning candles found at his apartment disprove that theory. Christopher's death is one of the most unsettling cases in recent history. While his experiences and the circumstances of his death bear striking similarities to age-old beliefs about supernatural torment, it is essential to consider both psychological and physiological factors that may have played a role. The power of fear and the human's mind's ability to manifest physical symptoms cannot be underestimated. Remember, sometimes the most frightening things are those that lurk within our own minds. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and allow the mysteries to guide you. This is Amanda Joy, signing off.